Wednesday, and you can always find us at The Katie Halper Show on WBAI. That's 99.5 FM or WBAI.org. I'm here with Reggie Johnson. Hi, Reggie.
Hey, Katie.
How's it going?
It's Wednesday. It's the
Wednesday.
It's the hump day.
Hump day, middle of the week.
That's right.
Gabe Pacheco is not here. I should have warned you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Luckily, you're sitting down because
I am
whenever
sitting
you're
down.
working, you're sitting down, which is good because
that's kind of part of the job, but I understand.
You could have a standing desk or treadmill desk.
That would be interesting.
Right?
That would be.
So we're sad that Gabe isn't here.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It's really too bad. I mean, I see Gabe all the time. I feel like you guys have a more special bond.
Oh, well.
You do.
So
you kind of do.
So I've been told.
Yeah, there's a wonderful romance between you guys.
Right.
So we're really excited because we're going to have a phone call chat with Freddie DeBoer. I don't know if that's how you say it. Freddie DeBoer? DeBoer?
DeBoer?
DeBoer. I don't know. It's like a...
DeBoer? Well, how's the last name spelled?
B-O-E-R.
I think it's DeBoer.
DeBoer, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, this is a big deal because we let people call into the show who have blonde hair and blue eyes or red hair and green eyes, but we don't usually let them into the physical office. And we'll talk to you about why that is soon. But we've been lagging on that policy a little bit just because we feel like it's time to give back, right?
Oh,
We have this affirmative action policy basically based on the fact that Gabe Pacheco once assumed that this very attractive gorilla named Shabani had blue eyes. And that just spoke to the power of the myth of the blue-eyed supremacy that we've all been indoctrinated with. Because honestly, how indoctrinated with the blue-eyed myth of beauty do you have to be to think that a gorilla has blue eyes? Right? So that's when we started. We've had a couple hazel-eyed guests.
Right.
Claire Potter was our second guest. She's kind of hazel eyes.
Right.
But we are so excited to have Mr. DeBoer on the phone lines. Are you there?
What's up?
What's up?
Hi there.
Don't sound so animated.
Sorry, hi.
It's okay. Hi. No, these are serious times. And we have a lot of serious stuff to talk about. How do I pronounce your last name, by the way?
DeBoer.
DeBoer. Okay, cool. And do you go by Frederick or Freddie?
Freddie's fine.
Okay, Freddie's fine. Freddie is from Middletown, Connecticut, which is probably the most interesting thing that guests definitely want to hear about. That's all that they want to hear about. No, but he's a writer, a prolific writer, and his writing appears in Jacobin and Harper's, and he studies linguistics and teaches linguistics.
That's right.
How was Middletown for you, by the way? Because I went to Wesleyan, and I just want to apologize for the number of times you probably heard the word problematic.
Wesleyan, Middletown was a pretty awesome place to grow up. Connecticut, there's like three choices. You're in a super Tony, like rich town like Greenwich or Darien, which is known as Aryan Darien to people from Connecticut.
Oh, God, I like it.
There's little rural towns like Durham, like little small towns. And then there's just terribly poor like cities like Bridgeport and Hartford and New Haven.
Right.
Middletown is one of the only places in the state that's got like real diversity, racial diversity and economic diversity and stuff like that. And, Wesleyan students are really annoying in some ways, but they're also cool in some ways. And the university brings a lot of cool culture to the town. So.
Right. And chalking. There's a lot of chalking.
A lot of chalking.
So that's, Reggie, that is...
what's chalking?
Chalking is when you write things that are shocking to at least 18 to 22-year-olds, and you just write them in chalk on the pavement.
Wow.
To protest,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've just learned something.
Freddie, I have a question. This is Reggie Johnson, by the way.
Hello.
Hi there, Reggie.
Hey.
Who's our engineer-in-chief. So I have a question. You write a lot about identity politics, right?
That's right.
So is Freddie DeBoer a stage name?
It is not, although that accusation has been made in the past.
Oh, really? Okay. I had to ask. Yeah. And how did you get into this issue?
Well, that's a good question. I am from a left-wing background and sort of old-school socialist background. Was an activist for many years. And as I sort of started to watch the center of gravity of left-wing politics and left-wing discussion move online, I noticed that a lot of things were changing in how we talked about problems like racism and sexism. And I didn't think that they were changing for the better. And that's how I kind of got interested in it.
Got it. And what are your thoughts? I was listening to an interview that you did, and you had some really interesting things to say about horizontal organizing and organization and consensus building and consensus as a method, right? And hold on, let me just check. I'm making sure there's a consensus that I can go on with this question. Everyone's okay? You guys okay? We reached consensus, but that's because there are only four of us.
Okay.
But I want to know, because you did challenge this horizontal organizing model, what the ideal for you is in terms of government.
Sure. So look, I mean, there's no, I don't have like a 10-point plan in terms of
a 5-year plan?
I don't have a plan like should the treasurer of your activist group report to the vice president or the undersecretary or whatever, and who should be parliamentarian. I do know that if you want to create actual change, you have to have some, it's called organizing, right? Which means that you have to have some organization. Horizontal structures are notorious for not being able to get anything done because the denial of leadership ultimately also becomes the denial of responsibility, right? When you say that nobody's a leader in our group, it means that no one's individually responsible for anything.
Right.
And also, in order for people to really invest themselves in something, even if they're selfless people, even if they're people who genuinely want to change the world, it's really hard to do that when you feel like your efforts are not sort of recognized within the structure. And I think that it's just a false choice. The choice is not like either with the military, right, with like strict hierarchies everywhere and everybody saluting to each other.
Or a drum circle.
Or a drum circle, right? And so I think that the organizational structure itself is something that should evolve. And obviously, you should be careful about people becoming too powerful in the organization or unaccountable to their members. And there should be sort of things baked into your system that allow you to make change when change in leadership is necessary.
Right.
But if you want to actually be a force for change in the world, you have to recognize that establishment power is organized, right?
Right.
Like the cops were organized and the corporations were organized, and they know that organization is the power, so you better organize too.
Right. Yeah, that's something that the left sometimes forgets in its anti-authoritarianness, right? That there actually is a lot of discipline required, and it's kind of self-indulgent not to have discipline.
Right. Well, it's also, a lot of people come to left-wing politics, and I don't blame them for this. I mean, it's not their fault, but the left has a lot of converts, right? It's got a lot of people who kind of grew up in kind of churchy homes in the Midwest and these people are super passionate, and that's great. But a lot of times they don't come from a background where, organizing is something real. They read about it, and they read about it online, and they're into it, and they like the idea. But it's oftentimes people kind of have this difficulty kind of making the transition into, actually doing something.
Right. It's good that there's a coolness factor to it, but then you have to get over that and actually engage.
Right. So one of the things that horizontal activism does is it enables people to sort of continue with their kind of fantasy idea about what organizing is, but it's very unglamorous and it's very slow and it's kind of annoying to actually do actual activism.
Right. And you talk about fascism and Donald Trump and the representation of Trump as a fascist. I agree. I think that Trump is very theatrical, right? And I think he has a fascistic flair to him. But I'm always surprised that people aren't more afraid of Ted Cruz. What do you think of that comparison in terms of the scarier of the two?
Right. So I want to be careful. I mean, obviously, fascism is always something to fear, right?
Yes and no.
I mean, one of the things is it's part of what makes change difficult in the modern world is that we have all of these pretenses of what we do and we don't do, right? So if you look at colonialism, right? For centuries, we had explicit colonialism and imperialism, right? You had, it was just a thing that a country would do is to go and invade another country and steal its resources. It's good that doesn't really happen anymore. However, we've replaced it with kind of neo-colonialism, right? So all kinds of trade deals and exploitative partnerships. So right now, China, which is really a rising kind of neo-imperialist power, has struck this crazy deal in Jamaica where they are building a road for Jamaica. They're building a highway. So they're providing the funds for it. But they own all the land that is on either side of the highway. And so they are actually going to take physical control, physical ownership of a big swath of Jamaica. That is the sort of thing that it's not as ugly and obvious to see as sort of just going and invading Jamaica.
Right.
So we've created this sort of veneer of sort of modern civilization when there's still so much exploitation going on.
And a respect for human rights, right? And civil rights.
But Trump, just to say the Trump and the Cruz question, right? Trump, part of what makes elites hate Trump is that he has kind of pulled the blind off, right? He's kind of pulled off the veil. He's just saying what is underneath the surface. He's a monster, but he's an honest monster. He makes it clear that Republicans hate immigrants and Hispanic people and Muslims. He is just saying what the other Republicans have been saying in code for years.
Or with the abortion issue, right? That was what struck me when the other day with Chris Matthews, who I find endlessly entertaining, by the way. I kind of do love Chris Matthews, but he asked him about what he would do with women who had abortions. And Donald Trump was kind of like, oh, yeah, there'd be a punishment. I'd punish them. And everyone flipped out, right? And they ignored two things. One is that the logical implication of considering abortion murder is that it's criminalized and it's punishable, right? And it should be.
Right.
I mean, they're wrong about abortion. But following their theory, that's the logical outcome and conclusion. The other thing is women are already being punished for that. But I thought that was a great example of how he, as you said, he just exposed the really ugly face that's behind this kind of not even attractive. I mean, Ted Cruz, not to be, what's the word, lookist or something, but Ted Cruz is not a very attractive dude. But on a policy level, there's a more attractive face, right?
Did you used to ever watch Gummy Bears, like the Disney show Gummy Bears?
No, I didn't even know they were a thing. I thought they were just a food.
Ted Cruz looks like the little the little person ogre named Toadwort on that show. If you Google it, just Google Toadwort and then compare a picture to Ted Cruz.
Already. Yeah, he looks like if Marco Rubio's head was stuck between closing elevator doors.
Yeah, it's like
figured out.
Yeah, really mushed. Yeah, very not elongated, but kind of distorted.
Distorted.
He looks like Dobby from Harry Potter.
There's consensus in the room from people who've seen it more than I have. I think I saw one of them. I'm not this ignorant on a pop culture level, but the Gummy Bears, the Harry Potters, and the Star Wars.
The Gummy Bears is new for me. I didn't realize about the Gummy Bears.
Right.
I thought it was just a candy.
I think the thing about
because I'm old. Bro.
What? No.
Just because I'm old.
Yeah, right. You're younger than both of us, I think. But the thing about Cruz that's so attractive, besides what he says and does, and his terrible Spanish, is that he's so like oozing with sexuality that he literally spits chunks of things out, which land on his lip and then are re-digested. Did you guys see that during the debate?
Yeah.
I know I'm being so petty right now. He's a very scary, hawkish man and much more fascistic in content, right?
Well, you see Trump. How his daughter reacted to him in those pictures.
Oh my gosh, those videos, those campaign videos. That was amazing. The cruise control thing that the Daily Show did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really great.
And I saw a meme that was saying that, "Daddy, I rebuke you from your evil."
Oh my God.
Yeah, they took a screenshot of it and it made it into a meme.
Wow. Well,
the thing is, the reason to fear Cruz, right, is precisely that. I mean, his policies are not that different from Donald Trump.
Right.
And yet he has the backing of the Republican establishment, right? So,
he's an intellectual,
right?
Even though he's anti-intellectual in his presentation, but he's a lawyer. Do you know that he went to Harvard Law? And do you know what play he was in? Not making this up. What Arthur Miller play he was in?
Death of the Salesman.
The Crucible.
Ah, okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Did he play the witch?
No, yeah, he played a bad guy. He played not a witch. But he played a bad guy, as in bad to Arthur Miller, probably good to Ted Cruz, in that he was persecutor of alleged witches / very anti-communist. To take the allegory there.
I mean, the thing is I don't think that Ted Cruz is going to become president because, again, he looks like a creature from the cantina scene in Star Wars.
Right.
But I do think that he represents. No one likes
him. Everyone hates him, apparently.
Right, everybody hates him. He's like that kid in your high school class where he got bullied, but you couldn't feel that bad about it because he deserved it, you know. Right. But the thing is right, he speaks for a political tendency that still has a constituency in this country, and it's also a political tendency that, by the way, is dominating the state house races. You know that Democrats, since the beginning of the Obama administration, have lost over 900 state legislature seats across the country.
Wow.
And so one of the things that's happening is, Democrats only seem to really pay attention for the presidential elections. Right. But every year, the Republicans are tightening their grip on the state houses. And then what that does is when you have the state house, right, you control districting, which means that you can gerrymander and you can win the House. And so we're getting, Democrats are getting killed on the ground game.
Oh, I think I heard a little identification with the Democratic Party.
And so we're getting, Democrats are getting killed on the ground game.
Oh, I think I heard a little identification with the Democratic Party. We can
a little bit.
We can cut this out. We'll bleep this out.
Bleep that, please.
Yeah, the podcast. Yeah.
But it's presidential politics are glamorous politics. Local and state elections are not sexy. And one of the problems, I think, is that the Democrats have real trouble motivating their base for anything other than a presidential election right now.
And Bernie, any thoughts on Bernie? I know that you you seem to, from what I've read of you and heard of you, you have a little bit of an ambivalence towards him, but he's the best it gets, right? As of now?
Yeah. So look, Bernie is not my ideal candidate, but my ideal candidate doesn't exist. Right. Like,
who is your ideal candidate? Let's say you could appoint a philosopher king. They don't have to be either one professionally, but if you could appoint the ideal person it could be a hybrid. It could be a Katie Halper meets Reggie Johnson, for instance. Lots of people have suggested us as the ideal.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, right? If we ran the country as running mates. Who is it? Who is the person? Like Emma Goldman? I don't know. Howard Zinn?
That is a good question.
You can come back if you need some time to think about that.
Well, whatever that amalgamation of that candidate will be, will not have such a negative reaction that Ted Cruz is having in the Bronx right now.
Oh, well, nice segue.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I have
that
skills.
Was good.
Yeah. Sorry,
Freddie. We had to do that Bronxian segue because Reggie is from the Bronx and I'm half Bronxian, so we had to honor that. Sorry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Bernie is not my ideal candidate, but and I mean, look, he's not really a socialist in the sense that
he probably is behind closed doors. Let's be honest.
I mean, yeah. I mean, his platform is not an openly socialist platform in the sense that he's not calling for public ownership of like productive apparatus in society, right? But ideologically, he's easily the best candidate we've had since Jesse Jackson in '84, whose platform was more to the left than Jesse Jackson in '88.
That's true.
Right.
And he's motivating a lot of people, and the way that the media and a lot of people are attacking him makes me like him more.
Totally. That's like when I started loving Obama when they went after him for the Jeremiah Wright stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
you remember, if people don't remember this, in 2008, Hillary refused to drop out of the primary even after she had been mathematically eliminated. And somebody asked her about it, and her quote was, "We all remember."
We literally talked about this. This is hysterical. We did a mashup of the Clintonian tone. We did a Clinton tone mashup, and we played her referencing. They said to her, as you were saying, "What about party unity? Why don't you drop out?" Basically, the same way that Joel Benenson called on Bernie Sanders to drop out. And also, Joel Benenson said that Bernie Sanders was going to run like a Brooklynite and Clinton was going to run like a senator. And then he tried to get away with that by saying, "I'm from Queens. Of course, I love Brooklyn." We all know that's not true. Major rivalry there. So shame on you, Joel Benenson. It's been 1 week. I'm going to do the Keith Olbermann thing with George Bush. It's been 1 week since we asked Joel Benenson to apologize, and he still hasn't, for that Brooklyn-phobic commentary. But we played the thing, where Hillary says, I'm not going to drop. They said, "Why don't we drop out?" She goes, "Well, my husband didn't get the nomination until," and she fakes as if she's pretending she doesn't remember the month, until, what was it? June in California. And we all remember what happened in June. June was when Bobby Kennedy was killed in California.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Is that what you were referring to? Or was it another assassination attempt that she tried to leverage against Obama and fearmonger?
It's like, it's number one. It's like, okay, like literally like, hey, my opponent could get assassinated. I'm not saying I want it to happen.
No, I would hate for it to happen, but he's black and the Secret Service alert is higher than ever, so it really could, and we should just cover our bases and vote for me.
In the country of James Earl Ray and, it doesn't seem to me to be a very smart or fair thing to say. So she can't lecture anybody about tone.
No, and then, speaking of Jesse Jackson, Bill Clinton, when he was asked about Obama winning in South Carolina, he made the just like Hillary went to RFK, because that's the way their brains work. They're just these geniuses we can't even begin to understand. Bill Clinton says, Jesse Jackson won South Carolina too, and he ran a good campaign.
Yeah.
Which no one remembers.
Flippant.
And then he was asked about that on radio. They asked him about it, and he said he didn't make a mistake when he said that because they're playing the race card on me. And then he was asked about his comment about the race card, and he said, "No, I didn't say that. Go back to the interview." And then, of course, you go back to the interview, and he's asked about that, and he says, "No, they played the race card on me." Anyway, But Freddie, where can people find you online?
So my website is FwdRadDeBoer.com. It's FrikDeBoer.com. Or you can just Google Freddie DeBoer. I also have a column for the New York Observer at Observer.com. And I'm all over the place, so you can find me pretty easy.
He's a mess, guys. All over the place. No, just kidding. All over the place. Prolific online, all over. And on the Twitters. In fact, there's a very funny thing that happened when I was looking at your Twitter feed. you retweeted this, so you know this, but you mentioned something. You mentioned Chris Hayes, and then the Twitter advertisement that appeared below that tweet was literally something about Penn Jillette's libertarianism.
Yeah.
So thank
like
you.
I love how people get political. Like after the thing that they should be famous for stops being important.
Right.
It's like, well, I guess I'm just this this magician. I guess I'll become a political libertarian now.
Right.
And have a career doing that.
It makes sense in a way because libertarianism requires like belief in magic.
Yes, it does. Hey,
that was pretty
Count
good,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Well, Freddie, we would love to have you back on. Come on into the studio when you're in New York. We'll do a live show. We'll get you and Penn Jillette debating libertarianism.
Word.
But he may make you disappear.
I'll pull him out of a hat.
Nice. Perfect.
All over. All right.
Thanks a lot.
I'll be in touch.
Great.
Bye.
That was Freddie DeBoer, whose real name is probably like Barney Goldstein, right? But
wow,
speaking of,
really?
Yeah,
Barney
I'm just
Goldstein?
Gonna go there,
That's pretty generic.
For New York City.
Well,
that's
yeah,
how, like,
absolutely. Well,
insulated
that's
we are.
all I'm talking about.
Right,
That's
of course.
all that matters, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
We're so excited to bring on our next two guests who are live in studio. They sat so patiently, chomping at the bits, or the bit. I don't even know what that's like what is it? Champing? You know why I said chomping? Because I watched the movie Waiting for Guffman. It's my favorite movie ever. And he says chomping at the bit. So I thought it was, anyway. Well, I'm champing at the bit to have with me here Leslie Lee, a writer and teacher.
Former teacher.
Former teacher. Me too. I'm a former teacher, but it's part of our identity. It's like being an alcoholic. We never really stop.
That's true.
Who is fresh off the plane we flew him in from Japan just to have him on the show.
I flew in yesterday. Kay Halper show is very big in Japan, of
Exactly.
course. And everybody in Tokyo was very excited that I was going to be on.
Yeah, so they put their resources together and flew you out here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you've moved back to the D.C. area?
But that was just,
coincident. Right, yeah, exactly. Since you were going to come on the show anyway, you figured why not make a life change?
Yeah,
right,
of course.
Exactly.
I mean, with this interview now, I don't have a job at this point. I quit my job.
Well, now you do.
Well, exactly.
Exactly.
I'm on this show now. I'm sure my Twitter is going to be blowing up.
It is.
And the phone calls are going to be coming in for me. Like, I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you too. You're going to get the Katie Halper Show bump.
Yeah.
And Jacob Ridge. So
me.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
And you are an organizer. People say activist, but something that Al Giordano,
We'll go with
if you're
organizer.
listening, he and I don't agree on lots of things, Al and I,
Yeah.
but one thing we do agree on that I got from him, it's his thing, is the difference between activist and organizer, which I was kind of talking about with Freddie, which is kind of activist. It's like about your identity and,
Right.
the drum circle, embracing that.
Right.
And I say that as someone who went to Wesleyan again,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
Like
And
Hillary
look-
Clinton too, right?
No, she went to Wellesley.
Oh, wow.
Mine is like the PCU. Hers is a preppy all women's.
I see.
But, I loved Ani DeFranco.
Mhm.
I love Dar Williams still. I had her on the show. So no shots fired at the drum circles. Although I don't like them personally,
Right.
but those types
Too
of
loud.
people. Yeah, they're too loud.
What are your thoughts on Dave Matthews Band?
You know what? I have to admit, there's some songs of theirs that I absolutely hate. And there's some songs that I really like, including Crash, which is basically the perviest song ever about a peeping Tom.
It is.
Yeah.
That's right.
Imploring a woman he's staring at to hike up her skirt a little more and show her world to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so
Wow.
poetic, you almost forget. It's so original, you almost forget that he's a misogynist and sex offender. But I'm sorry, we got off on the organizer activist
Right.
dichotomy, but
Yeah.
you're a veteran,
Yes, I
a
am.
conscientious objector,
I am that.
and an LGBT organizer.
I like organizer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And you guys are here tonight because each of you would make an amazing guest just on your own for the full hour, right? But we're super excited because even more exciting than that is that you guys are doing this show now. And at 8 p.m., you're doing the Katie Halper Show live, the live taping. Guys, are you listening to this? Tonight, 8 p.m., the Brooklyn Commons. That's 388 Atlantic Avenue. Again, the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue. We will be talking to Jacob Ridge. We'll be talking to Leslie Lee, the third.
Yes.
And we'll be talking to Eric Andiola, who is Bernie Sanders' National Latina Press Secretary. So it's going to be a great show. And the theme is, and we'll get to what this means in a second, but the theme is hashtag Bernie made me white. And we're going to be challenging the notion of the Bernie bro that the media is kind of obsessed with.
Yep.
So I just wanted to ask you guys how you kind of identify, how you identify vis-a-vis Bernie Sanders and how you relate to the Bernie bro image and how much it applies to you or does not apply to you.
Well, before this election, I thought I was a black man.
Right.
Growing up in Louisiana, I was reminded of this fact very often.
Right.
Especially with my experience, I was in the gifted and talented program. And of course, in Louisiana, black kids usually don't get pushed into those programs. So I was always, of one or two black kids in class, and most of my friends are white who had Republican parents.
Ooh.
They watched the Rush Limbaugh show from 4th grade on.
So did they think you were a magical Negro?
Yes, absolutely. They would use the N-word in front of me and say, "Oh, we don't mean you."
Right.
Yeah, you're not one of those people.
Wow.
So, and I think that's a good perspective on racism because it explains. It helps me understand that it's not about the race. If you get close to a person, you're not going to look at them in a way.
Right.
And I think progressives kind of lose sight of that, and they always think racists or sexist or homophobes are just these monsters who are, irredeemable.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, but...
and there's a lot of classism that goes along with that, too, because not to kind of, make it seem like a luxury to be woke, right,
yes.
if you will.
Yeah.
But it's, the more access and more opportunity and more exposure you have to different things, the easier it is to not be susceptible to racist, sexist, homophobic propaganda, right? That's coming from Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If you're a white person growing up in Louisiana, you're not going to be exposed to a lot of progressive thought. If you're a black person growing up in Louisiana, you're not going to be exposed to a lot of progressive thought, which brings us to the Bernie bro myth. So the whole thing about Bernie bros is basically a way to shut down support of Bernie Sanders by painting us all as the worst thing in the world right now, which is a young white male who's on the internet, straight, cis, middle class,
maybe living in his parents' basement,
probably was okay with the original prequel trilogy to Star Wars.
Doobies too, smoking doobies.
Yes. Well, those were Will Ferrell movies. And,
right, exactly. And is
listening to a lot of NWA.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And fetishizing black people.
Oh, yeah.
And,
of course, dressing like them as well.
And loving their music because it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And harassing women online, right? And not getting it and being insensitive. So that's constantly the label that's thrown at Bernie Sanders supporters is that they're Bernie bros, right? Which is like shorthand for super privileged, right?
Yes.
And what happened was, and we talked about this last week, but was when Bernie Sanders won Alaska, Washington, Hawaii, CNN presented it as yet another white state victory. Of course, Bernie Sanders won that. And so is that how you...
Yeah, that's where the hashtag came in. Like, I wasn't original with this. A lot of people said, when Bernie Sanders wins Hawaii, it's suddenly going to become a white state, according to the media. And we were kind of joking, but immediately it did become a white state to the media. CNN reported it as mostly rural, mostly white victories, but three of those states are three of the most diverse in the country. So seeing that ridiculousness, I was talking to Benjamin Dixon of the Benjamin Dixon Show, who's a great guy, and a couple other people. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
We'll put it back in.
Yeah. You'll edit it. So I made the hashtag, Bernie made me white, since the media keeps turning us in white. And then we started cracking jokes about your people. Sorry.
I am white. I am white. There's no doubt about it. I have a tiny undercurrent of Jew, which doesn't totally mitigate it, but it's there. Right. But for all intents and purposes, I walk down the street, I'm seen as white. Sometimes I'm seen as Latino, which really excites me.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Right? But Jacob, tell us about your involvement or your kind of relationship with the Bernie Sanders, the Bernie bro, and the candidate.
Right. Well, unfortunately, I am the Bernie bro. On the surface, I'm straight, white, cis, male, young. I fashion myself a feminist, so I am the Bernie bro that they talk about on the surface. But I know that what attracted me to Bernie Sanders as an LGBT organizer was his staunch advocacy for LGBT rights since before I was even born, and before it was cool, and before it was politically expedient. He did it because he saw them as people. And for the same reasons.
Crazy town.
Right. And which is weird, right? Like, how dare you as a politician treat people like people?
Right. As you said, way before it was considered cool to do that. He's someone who, was it a congressman or a senator who actually referred to homos?
Homos in the military. It's one of my favorite rants to watch about Bernie Sanders because there's this, Southern stereotypical senator who grabs the mic and says, the same people that would do X, Y, and Z are the ones that would allow homos into the military. And he jumps and grabs the mic and says, I don't know if you know what you've done, but you've just insulted hundreds of thousands of American service members who served in all of the engagements, World War I, II, Vietnam, Korea. I mean, gay service members have been around since forever.
Right.
Whether or not they could serve openly without fear of retribution is a different story.
Right.
But they were there. They were probably there on Iwo Jima. They were probably there on D-Day.
Yeah.
They may not have been able to be open about it. And it's just impressive to me because, you know, as a straight person, it took me some time to come around to that point of view. And I just can't believe that they let him stay in politics as long as he's been in. He's got some pretty progressive and humanistic views. Those people are generally kicked out of politics.
Right.
But here he still is. I was also drawn to his conscientious objector application during Vietnam. He applied for it. It got denied, but he applied for it. I was shocked because I'm a conscientious objector, and that's how I got out of the military. And with the stigma that you hear about it, I just couldn't believe that this guy was in politics still. And I almost want to know, like, do the Republicans know?
Right.
Like, does everybody know that he tried to get out of the military service? Like, wow.
Well, this is a little unrelated, but I was amazed that when the bird landed on his podium, right?
Right.
Which, I mean, I know this is not a policy issue, but it was kind of moving because it looked like he was about to cry.
Right.
And then he turned it, you know, he said it was a dove for peace. It wasn't a dove. But what's interesting, and I shouldn't even say this on radio, but luckily I think Republicans don't listen to WBAI. Although some Hillary people may. But no one made this connection. When Fidel Castro entered Havana and proclaimed victory, he gave a speech in this famous plaza, and a dove landed on him. And so I'm waiting for the right the Hillary bots.
Well, quiet, right?
I know. Well, I said it. I can't help it. I have to speak truth to inefficient, to power / really bad PR that Hillary Clinton has. That's just this is my favorite meme right now. It's not a meme. It's a trend, I guess. The idea that because Hillary Clinton has lied so many times, and pause, I know that makes me a right-wing misogynist, right?
Right.
Because
so
clearly
sexist
reporting
it's very
the
sexist.
truth.
You're a Bernie bro.
I'm a Bernie bro. I am. I want to start identifying as. I want to reclaim that word. But when she said, "Where is my opponent?" when I was fighting for healthcare, and then it turns out he was literally behind her, right? So what does her PR person do after that is said? Says, "Yeah, exactly. That only proves our point. She was always ahead of him."
Oh,
I know. God forbid if we find
I'm
a photo
spinning
of
from
her,
the spin.
I know, right?
Amazing.
It's nauseating, dizzying. If we find a photo of her standing in front of him, then what happens? Does that change history, like Back to the Future?
I think so.
I think history changes every time Hillary Clinton opens her mouth.
True.
Basically,
Another great hashtag:
I mean,
history by Hillary.
That's why I made up Bernie Made Me White, because every time the media talks about me, I look down and I start becoming invisible, like Marty McFly in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't exist. And what's insidious about it is it's not about Bernie or Hillary necessarily. It's about basically trying to separate Black causes and interests from progressive causes, which has been effective, basically. It's very effective. Why are Black people in the South especially so supportive of Democrats, often blue dog Democrats, conservative Democrats? Like in Louisiana, we had Mary Landrieu, who tried to save her seat by pushing through legislation to approve the Keystone XL pipeline. So that's where she was coming from as a Democrat. And so by separating Black activists and causes from progressive activists and causes, socialists, unions, and of course there's a history of racism in progressive politics, of course, but the centrists, the conservatives want to keep that separate too, and the media seems happy to go along with it as well and just push Blackness as an issue unto itself and separate it from class issues, economic issues.
Which is so not intersectional, which is ironic because a lot of the people who are so pro-Hillary are the ones who kind of have the, hold up the label of intersectionality and intersectional feminism or whatever, right? And accuse people who are Bernie supporters of being privileged, right? And as if kind of the problematic position, I said it, problematic position is to support Bernie Sanders, and the non-problematic one is to support Hillary. And they actually point to, I mean, I've had people say this to me, to try to shut me up, and this is not like a white self-pity thing, but they'll say, like, oh, well, I guess Black people are just wrong, huh? As if there's this monolith of the Blacks, right? Like as our favorite Donald Trump refers to them. He says, I've always had a great relationship with the Blacks, which is, you do have a great relationship with them when you call them the Blacks. But yeah, this idea that it's like this, black folks are pragmatists. We're pragmatists, or they're pragmatists, depending on who's talking, right? And it's this way of kind of like presenting Bernie supporters as these fringe, kind of like what Freddie and I were talking about before, about these kind of newbies to activism who are fetishized. And that does happen. It's annoying. But the idea is somehow that you're privileged because you are attracted to a candidate whose policies are much more helpful and empowering to people who are not privileged.
Yeah, it's very hard to wrap my head around it because, like, they're using these languages of intersectionality.
Right.
Like, to hear Hillary Clinton use the word intersectionality, that's absurd. If that doesn't strike you as ridiculous, there's something wrong with you and your moral compass. She's a millionaire. She's one of the most powerful human beings to ever walk the face of this earth. She's at least in the top 500 of the most powerful human beings on the earth. She does not understand intersectionality, and she never will, and she never will be able to.
Right. I mean, because I think that she, in theory, she could, right? It's not, in other words, it's her privilege per se doesn't totally bar her from that, but I think a lot of her policies do. So we talked with Premila Nadesan about this a couple weeks ago, and we talked to Bob Scheer about this last week, about the way that the Clintons totally dismantled welfare and bragged about it, and that affects poor people. It affects people of color, but then that's a whole other thing, which is that people assume that all people on welfare are black, and that's because of certain linguistic language things like
that the Clintons use regularly.
Like the super predators, right? This coded language.
It's just that the Clinton. If you look at the rise of the Clintons, they built their power, at least on a national scale. I haven't looked too much into how they built it in Arkansas. But on a national scale, they built it straight off of racism. I don't even want to call it execution. It was a lynching of the mentally disabled black man.
In Arkansas, when he was governor.
Clinton flew down there.
Ricky Ray Rector. It was a lynching. He was mentally disabled at the time they executed him.
Yeah, he wasn't just to be... I totally agree with you. People will come at me when I say that, and they're like, well, he wasn't retarded when he did the crime, which is not actually relevant, because legally speaking, there's actually a Supreme Court case about this called the Panetti case, and you're not Panetta, you're actually not, you have to be rationally aware of what's happening when you're executed. But
not even executed, on trial. He was mentally disabled while he was on trial.
What was it, that he was injured while he was committing the crime? Is that what?
Immediately after he shot the police officer, he shot himself.
Got it. Okay. Yes. So he could, and he was deemed competent?
Somehow, yes. And the most insidious part about this is Bill Clinton knew exactly what he was doing. This started when Michael Dukakis was asked about the death penalty.
And if it was his wife, right? Who had been killed, if he would support it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Michael Dukakis answered the question with his general answer about a policy level issue. But what he didn't understand is that question was not about policy. That question was about, would you, as a white man, if a black man went into your home and raped and killed your wife, would you kill him? And he didn't answer it like that. But that was the subtext.
They wanted him to say yes, of course.
Yes. And Bill Clinton called Michael Dukakis' press secretary the night of that debate at 2 a.m. saying, what the hell happened? What did you do? And Bill Clinton remembered that when he ran for it. He had it in his mind when he went to kill that man.
So that's...
And it's just that much more ironic. Yeah. I don't care what a politician does in their private life as long as it's consensual. I do care when it's a socially conservative person. And of course, Clinton, I think, outlawed sodomy in Arkansas.
Did he?
Yeah. And that's what he did with, the woman with whom he did not have sexual relations.
Yeah. So progressive.
So progressive, right? And they're lawyers. They're really smart. That's the thing. The Clintons are super smart. They understand all the implications of what they're doing. I almost feel like they're not even that... I can't explain it. I actually feel bad for them. I think they're pathological. I think they're so obsessed with power. And I think their politics are actually better than the ones that they present. Yeah. But it's really... I was going to say insane or crazy, but that's kind of weird because we're talking about mental illness.
They have to be pathological because we tend to think of Bill Clinton's affairs all coming out around the same time. But that's not what happened. He was accused by Jennifer Flowers during the primary. So think about that. He survived that. But as soon as he got in the White House, he started a relationship with
you would think that would have been an alarm, right? Yeah. Like to maybe keep yourself out of that.
Right.
Those tendencies.
But sodomy's a sin.
Sodomy's a sin, yeah. Love this. What is it though? Love the sinner, not the sin.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or as James Adomian, a really funny comedian who is doing the Trump-Bernie comedic duo says he did his Bush impersonation, which is amazing. He'd say, "Love the sin, hate the sinner." But
we do.
We do, right? So we are so excited. We're about to be done with this episode, with this show, the Katie Halper Show, but we're so excited, and we really want to invite all of you to come down to the Brooklyn Commons tonight. You have 2 hours to get here. Ready? 2 hours. 388 Atlantic Avenue between Hoyt and Bond.
1 hour.
1 hour. Sorry, thank you. I was testing you.
Hour, yeah.
When I say ignore that, guys, take that out of your head. That was a weird.
8 o'clock.
That was
PM.
me. It's 8 p.m. Right. That was me wanting to give myself more time to stretch,
Right.
get ready. No. 8 p.m. and it's 7 now. You see, I'm not a numbers person. I'm much more of a humanities person. Anyway, you have 1 hour to get here. 1 hour to get here. Come on down 388 Atlantic Avenue. The first 10 people who get here get free tote bags, Bernie tote bags. There'll be drink specials. The whole thing is free. You'll meet these great people. We're going to read some of the best Bernie made me white hashtag examples. Your first one was what?
Bernie made me white, so I'm binge watching Friends.
Great. Very good one. That's a great one. Another one I read was like Bernie made me white, and so I take my salsa miles now, you know.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That was someone Latino. Yeah, and we will see you next week. Make sure you sign up, follow us on SoundCloud, subscribe on iTunes, give us a rating or review. And where can we find you guys online?
I'm at Tokyo Vampires.
Tokyo Vampires.
I'm a bridge with 2 underscores in there.
There you go. And we'll link to them. And we will see you next week, or we'll see you at 8 p.m. here at the Brooklyn Commons.